Welcome to the John Cady podcast. I'm John Cady, U.S. Navy retired, former minister. Before I dive into the topic today, I just want to give a quick recap of events over the past few days. Monday was my 63rd birthday. Give thanks to God Almighty for giving me the strength and fortitude to complete yet another journey around the sun. Not everybody gets to make it to 63. It's been an interesting year of reflection and healing on many different levels, and I'll get into that in a future episode. I appreciate all the greetings on my social media accounts. Thank you to family and friends. I thank my mom, my dad, my brothers for wishing me a happy birthday the other day. Also, my son and my daughter. I want to thank them as well. Love you all very much. Today, got the opportunity to have a combined birthday dinner for my son and I. His birthday's coming up on Christmas Eve. So, as has been a tradition for the two of us over the last few years, we've made it a point to have a birthday dinner together, just him and me. Cassandra was with us too for a while when she was still living. And our choice of restaurants has been the Copan Truck Stop and Diner, which is in the little sleepy town of Copan, Oklahoma, halfway between Cady, Kansas and Bartlesville. Excellent restaurant. I highly recommend people to stop by when they pass through Oklahoma on their way to Kansas or the other way down to Texas for that matter. It's an excellent restaurant. The food's great, the service is awesome, and the prices of everything are reasonable. It's a wonderful experience across the board. Now to the more serious topic. On the 14th of December, most of us were shocked by the very tragic news that famed actor and director Rob Reiner was brutally murdered by, allegedly, his son stabbed him. We'll know more as far as the investigation goes, what charges are pending, what the motive was for the incident, if in fact it was his son. More details will come out. But what bothers me, and I touched on this a while back when everybody was all bent out of shape and upset over the death of Charlie Kirk, and how people on the far left were rejoicing that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I'm going to get out of the politics of it and just address this situation as a man and as a human being. I don't care if the comments are coming from the right or from the left. And yes, I'm going to touch on President Trump's comments on this. President Trump, instead of just simply offering condolences to Rob Reiner's family, that a nation mourns with you over the tragic loss of a famed director whose movies delighted generations. My favorite Rob Reiner movie was, and still is, this is Spinal Tap. I'd happened to watch it just the other day. This is Spinal Tap was his directorial debut in 1983. If you haven't seen it, you need to. It is an excellent satire of classic rock and heavy metal bands that were popular during the 1970s and 1980s. That's where you hear the phrase, crank it up to 11. Just watch the amplifier scene. The Stonehenge scene was equally hilarious. When that prop was botched, and instead of a massive foam replica of one of the Stonehenge monuments, they had this little thing that was small enough to sit on my desk right next to the laptop where I'm recording this podcast right now. A lot of people, when they talk about Rob Reiner's film legacy, most of them are going to talk about two other classic movies he made, When Harry Met Sally and Princess Bride, and both of those are beloved classics. I am of the belief that you can enjoy an artist's work without having to agree or disagree with that artist's politics. I believe that those are separate from each other in many cases. I like Bruce Springsteen's music from the 70s and 80s. Am I a fan of Bruce Springsteen's politics? No, I don't agree with him at all. If I was to go to a Springsteen concert and he started going off on a tangent about something political, I'd be one of those fans who would just say, "Excuse me, sir, I paid $75 to listen to you play Born to Run, not rant about whatever's going on in Washington." There's a time and a place for that. We paid $75 to hear you and your band play. Can we please have that? And I would say the same thing about any artist. This now goes into the subject at hand, and that is President Trump's, in my opinion, very crass and insensitive comment about Rob Reiner. He talks about Rob Reiner having end-stage Trump derangement syndrome. For those who are not familiar with the term Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS, that is a term used to describe people who get bent out of shape easily just by the mere mentioning of the current occupant of the White House. That I thought was very insensitive, and it was in very poor taste, because I complain about people on the left politicizing everything, but now, just like we've had people politicizing the death of Charlie Kirk, we have a sitting president who is politicizing the tragic death of a liberal film director. And in both cases, they're wrong. The president is wrong. And I'm going to lose friends over this. I'm probably going to lose some followers. But you know what? I don't care. I don't care because this isn't about right or left. It's just about human decency. I personally have had people in my own life whom I don't agree with. In fact, people who have done me wrong. People who had mistreated me at my former church. An individual in the Navy who had an axe to grind, and basically he set things in motion that set me back a few years. But when situations in their lives came up, a personal tragedy hit, I put those differences aside and tried to reach out as a decent human being. Because, the Bible also talks about that we mourn with those who mourn. And it doesn't say that they have to agree with us or they even have to be our friends. Because Jesus even commanded that we should pray for our enemies and pray for those who despitefully use us and even persecute us. I think in this conversation, President Trump forgot about that. And instead of just putting that aside and just simply offering condolences and sympathy to the family, he went off on a rant that has even caused his most ardent supporters to kind of step back and say, Mr. President, I think you've gone too far here. And this goes with anybody else who's been making comments like that. This is why I said back when we talked about Charlie Kirk, I mentioned that the era of having the ability to do civil discourse in these conversations is a dying art. We just keep getting more and more polarized at every turn, and we forget that behind all the rhetoric, these are still human beings we're talking about. These are still people who have feelings, who have families, who have loved ones. When tragedy hits, that is not the time to jump in with both feet and stomp on their broken hearts and kick them when they're down. God help us. This is John Cady. If you've enjoyed this podcast, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll be looking forward to you on the next one.